Community Foundation Tampa Bay for a generous grant supporting our Edward R. Murrow Award for Overall Excellence in Large Market Radio. Your investment in public media helps us serve our community. Thank you for believing in WUSF.
The government shutdown is in week 2. That means a lot of federal workers can't work and aren't getting paid. I'm Matthew Petty, and coming up on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about who this shutdown is hurting here in the Tampa Bay region. If you're one of those furloughed workers, how is this shutdown affecting you? Lawmakers still need to hash out a deal and get the government funded, but they aren't budging. What do you want them to know? Call 813-755-6562, that's 813-755-6562, or email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Then, State Surgeon General Dr. Joseph Ladapo wants to do away with vaccine mandates. Who do you trust on vaccines? And it's Banned Books Week. Why are Florida schools restricting certain books? We'll talk about all this and hear from you on Florida Matters Live and Local. First, news.
Live from NPR News, I'm Dale Willman. We're waiting for the start of President Trump's cabinet meeting where the government shutdown is expected to be discussed. That shutdown is now in its 9th day, and so far there appears to be no immediate path forward. Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of a ceasefire. It's supposed to go into effect later today. Israel is to free thousands of Palestinian prisoners and detainees, while Hamas is to release all 20 living hostages within days. NPR's Carrie Kahn reports that Israelis are celebrating the news.
In a downtown Tel Aviv plaza where families and supporters of hostages.
You want to be like about. Yeah, they don't really adjust that much. But yeah.
Okay.
Okie dokie. So let's see. Christine, if you could say what you had for breakfast.
Oh, gosh. I had a piece of toast and coffee.
Anything on your toast?
Yeah, I have peanut butter every morning.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Big peanut butter fan.
That's good stuff. Very durable food. All right. How about you, Tatishka?
So no, I didn't have anything for breakfast. Just had some Gatorade and my medication.
Well, look, Gatorade is a good start, right? You got your electrolytes in there?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
What can the city of Chicago do to block the National Guard from assisting ICE in the city? The Trump administration has said the Guard troops have orders to protect federal functions, personnel, and property, specifically ICE operations. Mayor Brandon Johnson says he will do whatever it takes to protect the residents and fight what he calls a federal invasion. Meanwhile, President Trump has called for the arrest of Johnson. Trump accused the mayor of failing to protect ICE officers. Sergio Martinez Beltran, NPR News, Chicago.
On Wall Street, investors are digesting better than expected earnings reports from Pepsi and Delta. NPR's Scott Horsley has our reports.
Pepsi sales in North America have lost a little fizz. The company points to falling demand for soft drinks and salty snacks in the region. That was offset, however, by stronger sales in Asia and Latin America, boosting Pepsi's worldwide sales by more than 2.5%. Delta Airlines also reported better than expected sales and profits for its most recent quarter. That gave a lift to Delta's own stock and shares in other airlines as well. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Texas top criminal court has again paused the execution of Robert Robertson just days before he had been set to become the first person in the U.S. put to death in a shaken baby case. Stocks on Wall Street are down across the board slightly. This is NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with Snapshot, a personalized program that bases rates on safe driving habits, at Progressive.com. Not available in California or from all agents. This is NPR.
You're listening to WUSF 89.7 News. I'm Sky LeBron. The H-2A visa program allows foreign workers to fill jobs on U.S. farms on a temporary basis. But some people are hesitant to come amid intense immigration enforcement. And as WUSF's Nancy Guan tells us, that could hurt the state's economy.
Florida tops the nation when it comes to hiring farm labor through the H-2A program. The state has a booming agriculture industry and stiff penalties for hiring undocumented workers. But farmers say the immigration crackdown is creating fear among their H-2A employees, even though they're here legally. Chris Ball is with Moss Labor. The company helps farmers recruit workers.
Our clients are telling us that those ICE agents are stopping those workers.
The federal government recently streamlined parts of the H-2A application process, but Ball says the political environment could be working against those improvements. He says he'll be watching closely next spring when most H-2A workers return for the planting season. Nancy Guan, WUSF 89.7 News.
Some Central Florida public school districts are canceling Latinos in Action classes after receiving letters from the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. The program is aimed at building the next generation of Latino leaders. The office claims the program violates Title VI federal law as it, quote, excludes students based on race. So far, Seminole is converting Latinos in Action into leadership classes for all students, regardless of race or ethnicity. Polk County is considering doing something similar. Local social justice leaders have concerns over the cancellation, like Q Latinx Director Gabriela Rodriguez.
I would just say that it isn't just about a class. It's really about cultural belonging. And when we continue to remove spaces like this, we continue to lose entire generation of connection between different cultures and heritage.
Orange County Schools says its leadership program is already in compliance and open to all students. For more stories like this, head over to WUSF.org. You're listening to WUSF 89.7 News. I'm Sky LeBron. Want to catch up on Tampa Bay area news and culture? I'm Sky LeBron, and I got you every weekday morning with the Bay Blend podcast from WUSF. It's quick, fun, and you'll discover something new every day. It's the Bay Blend, wherever you get your podcasts or at WUSF.org.
Bach Tower Gardens hosts Dreamweaver, Tales from the Trees. It's an all-new immersive art exhibition where the lines between nature and the mystical blur with fairies, sprites, and more. Details at bachtowergardens.org.
You're listening to Florida Matters live and local, broadcasting from the doctors Lorraine Rubis and Neil Frankel studio in Tampa. I'm Matthew Petty. Well, about 31,000 federal workers make their home in the Tampa-St. Petersburg metro area. That's according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Many of them won't get paid until this government shutdown ends. While the shutdown stretches into a second week, President Trump has talked about potentially laying off some of those workers. That is already happening in some agencies. The president has also said furloughed workers may not get the back pay owed to them, though federal law says they must be paid.
But for the most part, we're going to take care of our people. There are some people that really don't deserve to be taken care of, and we'll take care of them in a different way.
Well, are you one of those federal furloughed workers? And if so, how are you getting by? Are you worried there may not be a job for you to come back to when the shutdown ends? We'd love to hear from you. Call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or you can send us an email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Even if you're not one of those furloughed federal workers, we would love to hear how the shutdown is affecting you. So give us a call, 813-755-6562. Well, for more, we're joined by Tatishka Thomas. She is the District 5 National Vice President for the American Federation of Government Employees, or AFGE. This union represents some 820,000 federal and D.C. government workers nationwide. Thank you so much for being with us, Tatishka.
No, thank you for having me.
And Metropolitan Ministries Chief Program Officer Christine Long. Thank you so much, Christine.
My pleasure.
We also reached out to Tampa U.S. Representative Kathy Castor to join Florida Matters live and local for her take on the shutdown. She isn't available today, but we are hoping to speak to her soon, perhaps next week. Well, Tatishka, let's talk of numbers for a moment, if we could. There's some 31,000 federal employees in this area, the Tampa Bay region. Tell me about the kind of work they do, the jobs they have.
So, majority of federal employees that are actually in the area either work for the TSA, they work for the airports. You have employees that actually work for the National Cemetery Association, the Office of Information and Technology with the Veterans Health Administration. You have Social Security Administration. You also have Bureau of Prisons.
Wow, it's a lot.
Yes, it's several.
List.
It's several.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of how many are actually furloughed at this time? Because it's a bit hard to kind of wrap your head around some of those numbers, right?
Yes, it's really hard to wrap our head around the numbers that we actually have because there's so much turmoil in between the actual law and then what the administration is actually saying.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really, it's hard for us to gauge how many employees are actually being furloughed, how many employees are being asked to, well, I should say, shouldn't use the word asked, how many employees are being forced to actually continue to work without actually receiving a paycheck.
Mm-hmm. What about your members, though? Do you have a survey so you can tell like how many of your members are sitting idle right now?
So we actually have nationally, we have a survey that's getting ready to go out later on this week to actually get the sense from our bargaining unit members and our members in whole to find out more information from them, to find out if they have been furloughed, if they've been forced to actually continue to work. We know at the airports, we know for a fact that they will be forced to stay at work without receiving a paycheck.
Right, because they're considered essential employees.
Correct.
So, but what are you hearing from your members? Like, are you getting some stories of folks saying, look, I can't work, I'm missing a paycheck, I'm in trouble?
We're going to, not as of today, but I expect that the longer the shutdown lasts, we will start receiving those calls probably within the next week. We already got some TSA workers that are actually getting ready to try to get a second job to actually supplement by not receiving a paycheck, but still being forced to actually go into work every single day.
Okay, so let me understand this. They're working a regular 9 to 5 or whatever the shift may be at TSA, but they're not getting paid. So then they've got to do another job. That sounds like it could be a bit of a safety issue.
Correct, it is.
You've got to be on your game if you're, making sure the passengers going through are nothing untoward is happening.
Correct. That's completely, you just hit the nail on the head. That is a safety issue. Because if you have someone essentially working 14, 16, or probably 20 plus hours in a day, how do you really expect them to be able to really securely do their job or safely do their job when they're trying to screen passengers coming through the airport or our air traffic controllers and everything else? How do you expect them to really do their job safely if they're in fear of going to lose their job, in fear that they're going to probably be fired if they don't come into work, if they start calling in, or if they need to now get a second job because they're exhausted to be able to just make ends meet or try to make ends meet.
If you're just joining us on Florida Matters Live and Local, we're talking about the federal government shutdown. It's now into day 9. Lots of federal employees in the Tampa Bay region, some 31,000 or so. A little hard to gauge how many of those folks may be furloughed at this time, but as we've been hearing, some of them may be having to work without pay. If you've got some thoughts on this, we'd love to hear from you. You can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Send us an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. And what do you want lawmakers to know about how this shutdown is affecting you? Metropolitan Ministries Chief Program Officer Christine Long is with us too. So one thing we've been hearing about is that in situations like this, folks who are struggling will turn to food banks and other sources of help. So what are you seeing?
Yeah, we are definitely preparing. We have been serving the Tampa Bay community for over 50 years, been through lots of crises over those 50 years. But anytime there's people are put into a tough financial situation, they need someplace to turn to. And food is always the first thing that impacts their budget. As soon as they don't get a paycheck, they can't go to the grocery store and buy food. So that's the very first thing we're stocking up on, getting prepared for, knowing that we're going to have some of those federal workers who've never had to come for this type of assistance before, coming to us and other local nonprofits for help.
Let me just wind back the clock a little bit if I could. And I'm not sure how long you've been with Metropolitan Ministries, but in 2018 there was I think a 35-day government shutdown. Do you recall kind of what was going on there, and does that experience offer some sort of a window of what we could be in for here?
Yeah, I was definitely here in 2018 and remember the difficulty that people had. We saw an increase in the number of people coming to our food pantries. And then it also lingers past that, where people haven't been able to pay their electric bills, they haven't been able to pay their rent. And so those impacts linger beyond the shutdown.
Yeah. Now, this is something you can actually help with, though, right? I was having a look at some of the assistance you can provide at Metropolitan Ministries you can offer some financial assistance. So does that help out with, say, electricity or rent or things like that?
Yes, it does and can, and we're expecting potentially, if the shutdown hangs on longer, that people are going to need that type of support. And we're making as much of that available to our government workers on furlough as possible during this time period.
Okay, so we are sort of into week 2 now, but I mean, are you seeing a bump so far, or are you just preparing for it at this point?
No bumps yet. I don't think people have missed their paychecks yet, but potentially this week some of that's going to start happening. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Tatishka, I wanted to come back to that idea of workers kind of being out of work for a bit and then maybe worrying about whether they'll have a job still when they go back. I mean, what are you hearing there?
That's the biggest fear amongst federal employees. It's been a fear because of the constant back and forth threats that come from this particular administration when it comes down to laying off people, just mass firings, and everything else. It's a true fear that federal employees actually have, that they'll be told they're going to be furloughed, that they're not going to be able to actually work, and then they're also being told now, even though it's in law as of 2019, that they will actually receive back pay, that they may not receive back pay.
Is that legal, though?
No, it is not legal at all. The law was actually put into place underneath Trump's administration last time, where he actually signed it into law in 2019, that employees that are actually furloughed or if there's a government shutdown, that people will receive their back pay.
What kind of practical help can the union provide? I mean, do you have an emergency fund for furloughed workers?
We are actually trying to devise something up right now. We're actually partnering with a lot of actual nonprofit organizations that actually provide resources for federal employees and just resources, period, just for anybody who actually needs it. So we're here to help as much as we actually can in regards to that. But we're also here to actually continue the legal battles and the legal lawsuits that this administration has actually caused us to fight constantly.
Are there any that are kind of specific to the Tampa Bay region, or are you sort of focused on what's going on up in D.C. when you think about some of these legal battles?
It's not just in D.C. It's everywhere. So our lawsuits actually cover all federal employees from D.C. to Florida, all the way down to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So we cover everybody.
I mean, what's your sense of kind of where we are on day 9 of this shutdown? Like, you optimistic about this being resolved anytime soon?
We're hopeful. We're trying to be as optimistic as possible. As we've seen within the recent days, Marjorie Taylor Greene actually has now taken a different stance in regards to funding the actual government and everything else, because now it's affecting her personally in her personal life when it comes down to her children. So, yeah, we're very hopeful that more Republicans will actually get back to work, since they're actually telling federal employees to work without pay, but for them to get back to work and actually come to the table and negotiate to get this actually resolved, because we need the government up and open and running.
Yeah, I mean, both sides seem pretty dug in at this point. We're going to continue this conversation in a moment. You're listening to Florida Matters Live and Local, talking about the impact of the federal shutdown on your friends and neighbors here in the Tampa Bay region. Are you waiting for a federal office to reopen to get something important taken care of? What do you want lawmakers to know as this shutdown continues? Especially if you're a federal worker, air traffic controller, or VA employee. Give us a call. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can send us an email to FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Christine Long with Metropolitan Ministries and Tatishka Thomas with American Federation of Government Employees. Do stay with us. Florida Matters Live and Local continues in a moment.
You tune in to WUSF for all your favorite NPR shows. And for a list of when you can hear them, visit WUSF.org. WUSF is your spot for local, on air and online.
People say we got it made.
I'm Rob Schmitz. October 9th is John Lennon's birthday. He would have been 85. We remember his musical legacy and listen to some of his post-Beatles songs that may have been overlooked. That's next time on Here and Now.
We're afraid to be alone.
coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
Gulfside Healthcare Services provides expert, compassionate care for every step of your journey. The Dr. J. Weil Center for Hospice Care in Newport Richey is now serving patients. Learn more at gulfside.org.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. The federal government remains shut down. Republican and Democratic lawmakers in D.C. are dug in with no agreement on how to fund the government. And while the stalemate continues, lots of federal workers can't go back to work. They're not getting paid either. Are you one of the 31,000 federal employees in the Tampa-St. Petersburg metro area? And are you furloughed? What do you have to say about the political fight over the budget? The phones are open. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. You can send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. We're talking with Christine Long with Metropolitan Ministries and Tatishka Thomas with the American Federation of Government Employees. They represent some 820,000 federal and D.C. government workers nationwide. Christine, so you mentioned the kind of liaison with some of the other non-profits in the area, and you mentioned, seeing folks through crises. We've had a fair share of crises in the Tampa Bay region, right? Like last year's hurricane season is a good reminder of that. How does that liaison work? Like who do you kind of reach out to, especially at a time like this when you're essentially in a bit of a holding pattern, waiting to see what happens?
Yeah, we really put our arms around our partners that are doing a similar work, and also our local government partners as well who can support us, and the donors in the community. This is our time to really stock up and be prepared. And so we contact the folks that have helped us in the past, help us through crises, are interested in supporting people in our community that are struggling, and ask them to step up now so that we can be ready when more folks come to us in need of help.
Mm-hmm. Are there some organizations specifically that you're kind of talking with now?
Well, the United Way has been doing a great job of bringing partners together, organizations together, and sharing information. So that's an excellent resource that we've definitely been leaning on.
Mm-hmm. Here's an email that just came in. The administration has already cut so many jobs. Do furloughed workers worry this is just a ploy to shrink the federal workforce? Tatishka, what about that?
That is the absolute truth. That is the fear amongst a lot of federal employees because of the whole point of being possibly privatized and everything else. If you continue to keep shrinking the federal government, you're taking away the services that we provide to the public, to what we actually provide to the American people. And if you keep shrinking us and everything else, the only thing left is for you to then make it for a profit. Sorry.
For profit.
Yes, for profit.
That's a tricky one.
Yes, and everything else. And for billionaires to just keep making more money off more money and everything else when you privatize actual federal services.
I wonder, though, do you look at some of this and think this may just be political grandstanding? Does it seem a little bit like that right now?
I believe so. In my personal opinion, yes. It is a lot of, and they have to understand that federal workers, we took an oath to actually serve the American people. We are not here to be made as political pawns. We should never be made to be, pawns into their political game or their political grandstanding and everything else. We just want to come to work, do our job, and actually be paid so we can actually go home and take care of our families.
What do you think about the political fight over the budget and where it leaves federal employees with the shutdown? The number is 813-755-6562. You can also send us an email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. We're with Tatishka Thomas with the American Federation of Government Employees and Christine Long with Metropolitan Ministries. Tatishka, you've got a lot of employees. That's almost more than 820,000 folks or so. That's some leverage, but does it feel like that right now?
Right now, we are optimistic. We have to keep telling people that we're better when we're better when we actually have more people together, and everything else. We have to band together. We have to fight together. We have to make sure that we're getting our community activists involved, other unions involved, and everything else to actually really turn this around. It's going to take all of us to actually really turn this around.
Air traffic controllers have their own union, but I think some of your members work in other areas of aviation, right?
Correct, yes.
Do you think the air traffic controllers hold the key to ending this shutdown?
Personally, I believe they do have some keys to actually probably ending the actual government shutdown. I think if my memory serves me correct, the last time we had the shutdown for the 35 days, air traffic controllers actually played a very key part into ending that actual shutdown.
Mm-hmm. Who are you talking to up on Capitol Hill? Like, who are your negotiators trying to get something moving on this?
We're talking to as many politicians that actually we're able to actually talk to. We're always talking to Democrats that are actually still there on Capitol Hill, that are actually still working when they're actually home in their St. Pete or their office is here. We're speaking to them at every aspect that we actually can. Some of the Republicans are not being very open to actually any conversations at all. But we still continue to call them. That's one of our call to action, is to continue to call your Congress worker, men and women, to actually just tell them to do their job and open up the government and fund the government. Mm-hmm. Stop using federal employees as political pawns.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric going back and forth. I think you're hearing some of the same things from Republicans up on Capitol Hill. They're saying, well, look, the Democrats aren't playing ball either. So, I think both sides are pretty entrenched. Christine, I just wanted to come back to you for a moment. I mean, we heard from another local nonprofit leader. They told WUSF that people in federal jobs they're in sort of helper positions. So they see themselves as the helper rather than the helpee, if that's a word. It's hard for them to ask for support. What advice would you have to folks if they find themselves in that situation, needing to, say, go to a food bank or reach out for some financial assistance?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're not used to coming for help and very uncomfortable asking for help. But I would encourage them, don't be afraid. The community is here for them. Our community cares about them and wants them to be safe, wants them to be secure, wants them to make it through this difficult time successfully. So please feel free to reach out, come and ask. At Metropolitan Ministries, they can go to metromin.org and take a look at the resources that are available. If they identify themselves as federal workers, we're going to streamline that process and make it easier for them to get the help they need.
Is it a big paperwork process? Like, how complicated is it?
We're going to make it as simple as possible. For food, it's just show up, honestly, and come get what you need. For other types of financial assistance, there's a little bit of paperwork involved. And we are in conversations with our friends at TECO who are looking at streamlining some processes for utility assistance. So we're just continuing to find new ways to support our federal workers, and I hope that they will feel comfortable coming and reaching out for help.
Mm-hmm. Tatishka, in the last few seconds here, how do you see this playing out over the next few days? I mean, what are you going to be doing if the shutdown continues into a third or fourth week?
What we've been doing right now, continue the fight, continue to keep calling Congress to actually tell them to, do their job, fund the government, open up the government, and continue to actually keep, letting people know about resources that are actually out there for them, and to let them know it is okay to ask for help. Mm-hmm. We know that we are usually on the other end of it, but it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. Tatishka Thomas with the American Federation of Government Employees, thank you so much for your insights. Appreciate that. Also talking with Christine Long with Metropolitan Ministries. Thank you too, Christine. Well, coming up next, Florida State Surgeon General Joseph Ladapo said he wants to drop public school vaccine requirements. What does this mean for you and your family? Who do you trust for accurate information on vaccines? Is this one more thing to worry about when it comes to your kids, or do you welcome the choice? Call and tell us about it. We're at 813-755-6562. You can email FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. The conversation continues when Florida Matters Live and Local is back in a moment.
Looking for a soundtrack that speaks to your soul? Discover Studio Sessions, the podcast that celebrates Tampa Bay's rich jazz scene. Each episode features live performances from local jazz artists, plus candid conversations that dive deep into creativity and curiosity. Whether you're a lifelong jazz lover or just curious about the sound shaping our city, Studio Sessions is your backstage pass to the rhythm of the Bay. Listen now at WUSFjazz.org or wherever you stream your podcasts.
On the next Fresh Air, how the Pentagon and military are being transformed. Last week, Defense Secretary Hegseth told hundreds of top military commanders to end, quote, woke policies. And President Trump suggested using the military against the enemy from within. Trump has deployed the National Guard to several U.S. cities. Our guest will be The Atlantic's Nancy WUSF. Join us.
Fresh Air can now be heard weeknights, Monday through Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Welcome back to Florida Matters Live and Local. I'm Matthew Petty. Vaccinations. Few topics today seem as confusing or controversial. Maybe you're a parent deciding if your child should get the recommended set of vaccines for measles, polio and the like, or a senior worried that their insurance will cover the latest COVID-19 vaccine. It's possible you've wondered, what should I know and who can I trust? We're hoping to dispel some of that mystery of it all in these next few moments, and we want to hear from you. You can call 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Send us an email. We're at FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Well, joining us is USF Health Professor Thomas Unash. I hope I pronounced your last name correctly there.
Close enough.
Okay. And Julie Forrester, mom of two and political director of the Social Equity Through Education, or SEE Alliance. Julie, thank you as well.
Thank you for having me.
And Julie, I know you've got some personal experience with the risks facing immunocompromised people. We'll get to that in a little bit. But let's step back for a moment, back to September when Florida's Surgeon General announced in front of a crowd of supporters that the state would no longer require kids to get their shots if they wanted to go to public school.
The Florida Department of Health, in partnership with the governor, is going to be working to end all vaccine mandates in Florida law. All of them.
Well, now, though Dr. Ladapo's statements went against advice from all major medical groups, he's not backing down. He's continued making national media appearances, saying this is about parental rights and that there is no ethical basis for requiring vaccines. Professor, what do you make of this?
What I make of this is that this is a really big mistake. Most of the successes we've had in terms of vaccines have been on the basis of getting a lot of people vaccinated so that we can get the so-called herd immunity. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there are certain percentages of people who will not respond to a vaccine when they get a vaccine, or others who are immunocompromised or have other issues where they cannot get vaccinated. And the only way to protect those people is actually to make sure that everybody else has sufficient level of immunity, that these infectious agents do not get a foothold in our population and start to cause epidemics once again.
Herd immunity is something I think everybody heard a lot about 2020 forward, the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. Can you explain what it actually is and what it means?
Sure. I'd like to use an example here of South Korea. Mm-hmm. How about we move to South Korea as an analogy? According to population analysis, in order for a population to maintain itself, every woman has to have 2.1 children. That means if you have a couple, you have 1.05 children, and of course some of them will die. And in order to maintain that, that gives you one male and one female on average to replace every single person that's there. Okay. If you have more children than that, your population explodes, correct? You have a population problem. If you have fewer children, like they do now in South Korea, where every woman on average is having, I think, 0.7 children, eventually that population is going to decline and disappear, right? Same thing with an infectious agent. If an infectious agent enters the population, in order to maintain itself, it has to find a way to infect one additional person. If it infects one additional person, it maintains itself at that level. Yeah. If it manages to infect more than one person, you have an epidemic. And if it's less than one person, what you end up with is the infectious agent basically dies out. It can't find enough new hosts.
Is there like a level, a percentage at which you can say, yes, we have herd immunity, or does it depend on the disease?
It all depends on the disease.
Okay.
For some infections, it's probably around 60 or 70%. Mm-hmm. For measles and mumps and some of the more infectious agents, it's up to 95%.
Okay, yeah, because 95 sounds pretty high, but you're saying that if it's 95, that actually may be not high enough.
Right.
Yeah.
The other issue is that 95 assumes that the people who are vaccinated are completely randomly distributed through the population.
Okay.
And in many cases, that's not the case. We have pockets of places where people don't have a high level of vaccination.
Sure.
And those are hotspots. So we've seen outbreaks for measles, for example, in Queens and New York City among the Orthodox Jewish population a few years ago, and West Texas as well, as a result of this.
Well, Julie, I want to bring you into this conversation. You've got school-age kids. I mean, do you have some questions about their vaccine regimen?
So when my oldest was born almost 7 years ago, I definitely had concerns. Like many parents, we all just want what's best for our kids. And I was really worried when I heard stories about vaccine injuries and even the idea of vaccines being tied to autism. But after doing my own research, I extensively, reviewed peer-reviewed studies. Scientific research has consistently shown that vaccines do not cause autism, and furthermore, that the risk of severe vaccine injury is extremely low compared to the very real dangers of measles and polio. When I was in high school, I still remember having a teacher who walked with a cane because of childhood polio. So those consequences are far more common than the rare side effects. And so just, doing my own research, and I came to the conclusion that it was, more important to get them vaccinated than to not.
If you're just joining us, we're on Florida Matters Live and Local. We're talking about vaccines, the notion of doing away with vaccine requirements for public school kids. What do you think of it? If you've got some thoughts on the issue, give us a call. We're at 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Guest Dr. Unash, Professor Unash, I should say, and we're also speaking with Julie. Excuse me, I've lost your last name. Julie Forrester, mum of two, political director of the Social Equity through Education Receive Alliance. So let me just move to the vaccination requirements on Florida law. I mean, some vaccination requirements are Florida law. This means the legislature would need to address those changes. This week, WPTV in West Palm Beach reported that no related bills have been filed for the upcoming legislative session in January. Democratic Senator Lori Berman told the station she's worried about the impact of potentially lifting vaccination requirements.
I'm very concerned on, I'm concerned for the health of our children. I'm concerned for how this will affect us with tourism. Will people want to come here to our state?
And Scott Rivkees, who served as Florida's Surgeon General before Dr. Ladapo, he says this proposal is far outside mainstream medicine.
If we start unwinding the things that keep children safe and healthy in school, there will be real educational consequences. There are going to be real health consequences.
So what do you think? Do you think this debate is affecting Florida's image, its vital tourism industry? Do you think the real question is about parental rights? Are you a parent that does not want the state to mandate vaccinations for your kids? Give us a call, 813-755-6562. That's 813-755-6562. Or send us an email, FloridaMatters@WUSF.org. Julie, I mean, some people are at higher risk of infection from transmissible disease. Can you speak to a little bit to your family's experience with this?
Yes, absolutely. My brother was diagnosed with a rare cancer, terminal cancer, when he was 2 years old. He was given 6 months to live, but he actually lived 9.5 years. But he was one of those severely immunocompromised children that couldn't get vaccinated. He had 26 major surgeries in that 9.5 years. He had, countless rounds of chemotherapy. He was the definition of the child who couldn't get vaccinated because of his immunocompromised condition. So children who are immunocompromised are medically fragile, and they don't have a choice. They rely on the herd immunity that the professor mentioned. And if vaccination rates continue to drop, families like mine once will be in constant danger. And just, speaking from experience, it is terrifying and traumatizing when, a child is sick in a family, terminally ill. And so to have to add these fears is just ludicrous.
Let's go to the phones. We've got Kelly calling in. Kelly, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a comment there about the whole thing. I don't think there's enough information out there to make a good choice. Some of the studies and surveys are flawed. I think it should be up to the individual parents how they want to do it with their children. That's their right. Most of them have their best interests of their children involved. And it should be just like with the abortion issue. It should be up to the right of the individual to do what they want.
Kelly,
And if that's what
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just wanted to check before we let you go. Do you have kids? You got school-age kids?
I have 4 kids and 9 grandkids.
Oh wow, that's a lot. And I mean, are they vaccinated? Do you mind me if I ask? Like, did you sort of go through that decision-making process yourself?
Well, because of what happened in 2021, yes, they have had some vaccines, right? I will also allude to this that I have 2 boys and 2 girls. One of my girls is a registered nurse. Okay. And she has chosen not to vaccine because of the things she's seen and what she has participated in.
Okay. Well, Kelly, thank you so much for calling in. I really appreciate that. Professor, what about that? I mean, the notion that there isn't enough information out there. I mean, is it hard to kind of get that information across to the general public sometimes?
I think that may be the issue that's here. The amount of information on the childhood vaccines that are out there is absolutely overwhelming. The childhood vaccines that are given now were constant threats to children 50 years or 100 years ago, killing large numbers of children from tetanus, from whooping cough, from diphtheria. These are all diseases that were extremely feared. Polio was another one that was a really big issue. Most of these, at this point in time, we haven't seen outbreaks of these for probably 2 decades now. And as a result, I think people have become a little inured to worrying about these diseases because they no longer exist.
Indeed.
And unfortunately, I think what you're doing here is people who are not vaccinating their children are basically relying on everyone else to vaccinate their children so we don't get outbreaks.
Right. So herd immunity coming in there.
Right. And if you look what happened in West Texas, it's an issue there that all of a sudden when that outbreak started to happen, lots of mothers all of a sudden decided their children need to be vaccinated.
Indeed. I want to go to the phones one more if we could. Keith, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yeah, this is the same as the face mask mandate in that it's not so much to protect your child from the disease as to protect every child your child comes in contact from your child. And I'm sorry, parents may know that their child may be ill, but they don't know for sure that this child is contagious. And in fact, I can sue you if your child infects my child and you were aware that your child was ill.
Right. So the legal implications, perhaps it's a topic for another discussion, but I appreciate you calling in there, Keith. It is that's the argument for is about protecting others as well as yourself. Let's go to Micah as well. Micah, you're on the air.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I have 3 kids. They're all in different schools. So they come in contact with hundreds of kids every single day. And I know I'm not the only parent that has multiple schools that are in multiple districts. So we're talking about contact with thousands of different kids. So for this vaccination to be undone for schools is just, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Yeah, okay, appreciate your call there, Micah. One more call if we could. Ryan, you're on the air.
Hi. So, I'm 24. I don't have any kids. And I've just been kind of vastly taken aback by this whole entire progression with vax in general. I feel like this shouldn't affect anything, really. The fact that this has progressed so long is crazy to me. Honestly, it shouldn't change anyone's perspective. It's worked, and it has worked. There's been research out there. The counter-prevailing argument is just like, I don't trust it. And it's like, have you really looked at what is already out there?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the call. We're going to have to wrap that up, but I appreciate it. Just before we close out here, Julie, I just wanted to go to you. I mean, hearing some of these different opinions here, what are you thinking?
So, just because your child might survive measles doesn't mean the child with cancer in their classroom will. That's really who we're fighting for. This isn't just about our own kids. It's about protecting children with cancer, transplants, or immune disorders who don't have a choice. And furthermore, I kind of like to think of the analogy of like traffic patterns, right? Like we all have to obey traffic laws to keep public safety safe, right? And so it's the same thing with public health. Like there are certain things that we have to do to keep the greater population safe. And so, I think it's outrageous the way fear is being weaponized as a political tool. Instead of building trust in science and protecting children, our Surgeon General is deliberately spreading doubt and misinformation. It's not about what's best for children and families. It's about what's best for political agendas, and that is truly dangerous. It's easier to spread panic than to build trust, and our kids can't afford to put politics before their health.
We're going to have to leave it there, but Julie, thank you so much for your insights. Speaking with Julie Forrester, a mother of two, political director of the Sea Alliance. Thanks a lot. Also with us this hour, USF Health Professor Thomas Unash. Thomas, thank you too. Well, coming up, banned books. Which books got the boot in Florida libraries and classrooms? You're listening to Florida Matters, live and local. Much more to come in a moment.
I'm Robin Young. A New York mother is making social media education her mission after she says dangerous videos led to her son's death subway surfing, a deadly ballet atop trains.
I am not going to stop because this is horrible. Social media is killing these kids.
Next time, Here and Now.
Coming up at 1 after Florida Matters Live and Local.
I'm Megan Bowman with Your Florida. What's that? Well, I'm glad you asked. We share how state government impacts your daily life. Got a question? Let us know at WUSF.org/yourflorida.
Sarasota Rising presents their 2025 Living Arts Festival. It's coming your way this November. Sarasota and the entire Cultural Coast will become a stage, November 2nd through the 9th. Tickets and more information at sarasotarising.org.
You want critical information this hurricane season, and WUSF is here to help. It all starts with our comprehensive guide at WUSF.org. It answers common hurricane-related questions, like preparing a go kit or safety plan. As storms approach, we'll be on air and online with live local updates and information from the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. Before, during, and after storms, WUSF is here for you, ready to serve.
Welcome back to Florida Matters, live and local. I'm Matthew Petty. Florida has the most banned books in the country by one count, according to a recent report by PEN America, a nonprofit working to defend free expression. The state shelved about 2,300 books over the 2024-2025 school year. PEN America said Hillsborough County schools have the second highest number of banned books nationwide. They've banned or restricted access to over 600 books. We reached out to Hillsborough County Public Schools. They dispute PEN America's number. They declined to join the show today, but they did issue a statement, quote, "The report is not accurate because it combines books that were both under review and those that were removed, treating both categories the same in their total count," end quote. And they said they've only removed 59 books. Well, just taking a look at books that have been removed in the district, they include It Ends With Us, I should say, by Colleen Hoover, Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire, All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. If you want to see a full list of those banned books and to review the report, you can visit PEN America's website. So, why is Florida taking these books off the shelf? Do you agree or disagree with keeping kids from seeing books on the list? What role as a parent do you play in deciding what your kids read? Joining us to talk more about the banned book list is Casey Meehan, the Freedom to Read Program Director. Casey, thank you so much for being with us. We're also joined by Julie Gebhard, a member of the Florida-based group Moms for Liberty, a political organization that advocates against school curriculums that mention LGBTQ rights, race, and ethnicity, critical race theory, and discrimination. Okay, so Casey, let me start with you if I could. Why have so many books been banned within the last year, do you think?
Sure. PEN America has been tracking cases of book bans since 2021. So really, over the last 4 years, we've seen significant numbers of books pulled from access in our public schools, as well as in our public libraries. PEN's reporting focuses on public schools, where we see several pressures at play to lead to book bans. So this can be local efforts from, political organizations like Moms for Liberty and other groups that are, interested in seeing certain books removed from school library shelves. This can also be the influence of state laws that prohibit certain content areas or intimidate and chill, education and educators, as well as direct pressure from, state leaders, elected and appointed officials. And increasingly, we're seeing the effect of rhetoric from the Trump administration as well as executive orders also put, added pressure again on districts to censor certain types of books.
Some of these books do deal with topics that are better handled by older kids, though, right? I mean, should certain books have an age restriction on them, or rather than just pulling them off the shelves altogether?
Sure, and many do. I mean, we always point to sensible systems that have long been part of the educational process, where high school students may even have like a completely different physical high school library, or their educators and librarians that are at the school and are trained can support high school students in accessing books differently than the way they would support your first through fifth grade students. So there are longstanding sensible systems that have really historically worked well in helping students access books that are developmentally age appropriate for them, that are interesting to that kind of student, given where they're at in their lives.
Yeah, I'm wondering, Casey, if I could ask, I mean, are you a parent, and if so, has this conversation come up with your kids?
I am a parent, but he is quite little still. So I read to him though, but I do read, I think I am at Penn America, but personally, I also believe really in the power of books to transform the world in advancing critical thinking and supporting vocabulary and supporting knowledge. These are all really well-studied effects that books have on young people in particular. So, my house is filled with books that, offer kind of building blocks for language, but also expose my little one to, lots of identities and ideas, history, experiences that look like us, but also are different from our own too.
Well, Julie, if I could bring into this conversation, Moms for Liberty has a book look. It's a book review committee that reads books and prepares reports on them to recommend if they should be pulled from shelves or not. Why do you think it's important to kind of recommend that some of these books be pulled from either library shelves in classrooms or classrooms themselves?
Well, as we have seen, and in Hillsborough County especially, there are things beyond the pale that have been found on library shelves. I could read this, but you'd probably have to cut it out.
Just keep in mind we are a radio show, so if there's any sort of bad language or that, you probably shouldn't do that. But just tell us what titles you've got there.
So I do have Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, which is not like the play. I think it's deceptive to use that title because it sounds like such a traditional, normal, great thing. Actually, I realized I had purchased the book for my daughter when she was in middle school, but hopefully she didn't get around to reading it because it has a very explicit and odd sex scene between animals and creatures. So this is the kind of thing. We're not censoring ideas. We're not censoring. Our attempt is not to, exclude anyone. In fact, the last two books that were voted on in Hillsborough County were Identical and Blankets. There is nothing but white, heterosexual, lots of explicit things in those books. And so it's not an attempt to target any particular group. It's just the sexual content. That's where I have landed, and that's where I've stayed focused in all of this battle. So, I mean, and you can look at the letter that the Attorney General sent has excerpts from books. The funny thing is, and this is what I find, is that I have never heard a person who will argue to retain the books in schools while at the same time reading the content that parents like me find reprehensible. And so I have yet to hear people advocate while using that text, that specific text, to be able to argue that should stay in schools.
Isn't context important, though? I mean, like sometimes I think when we see somebody get up in a school board meeting and read out something that's, an explicit scene out of context of an entire book, like it probably is quite shocking, but if you're reading the entire book and if there's some context around it, it may make more sense.
Well, let's just say that the context around it, let's talk about movies for a minute. So we have R and X rated or NC-17 rated movies. It's not the context around it that makes it acceptable or unacceptable for a certain age group. It's that scene exists in the movie that makes it that rating that's not allowed. There's ratings around video games. There's ratings around movies. There's ratings around what can be aired on the radio and
Sure.
TV and the things that, like, the governor was trying to expose in the book ban hoax press conference. That was
why do
closed
you
off.
call it a hoax?
A hoax?
Yeah. Because, I mean, these
It's a good
books are
question.
getting pulled from the shelves, right?
So I think the reason it's called a hoax is that the term ban has been redefined by certain groups, and I would argue that PEN America has a different definition of ban that is traditionally not accepted. A book ban would not, what we're simply asking for is an age-appropriate content. If I had you read any content from any of these 57 books, it would not be allowed on your show. And you even said that. And so if it can't be aired in a setting with adults, how is it that it's okay for it to be in schools? So a ban is not the right term. A ban is like what Hitler did. If you were caught with a book, if you published a book, if you authored a book, you could be facing, I mean, up to the death penalty.
We might have to check some of that. I wanted to just kind of throw that back to you if I could for a moment. Casey, I mean, this notion of a ban being redefined, how does that land with you?
I mean, for us, a ban, our guiding principle here is access. So if a book that was available to students is no longer available to, that same set of students because of the content of the book, that is by definition, a ban on a book. So we've been,
that's
fairly
your
consistent.
definition. That's a different definition than the traditional definition. Removing something, putting it on a higher shelf is not the same thing as a book ban.
Yeah, continue, Casey.
Sure. So, I mean, our definition is around prohibiting access to a book. That's how, and we do agree that, those prohibitions can take many forms and can happen in different contexts, but, certainly where we see books that are being removed from access, that's how we, are tracking and that's the, the advocacy that we're raising here is to really prevent that removal and that restriction on books.
If I could just come back to you for a moment, Julie, when you think about the books that, say, you were reading in high school or middle school or even before that, were there passages in there that kind of shocked you, or is there stuff you're thinking as you're reading it, I shouldn't be exposed to this?
I think that there were a handful of things like that. I remember reading Catcher in the Rye in high school, and while I don't remember a lot of details about it, I remember thinking, I don't think my mom would really approve of this. Which kind of brings me to the idea, too, that parents have the God-given and the constitutional right to train up their children morally the way that they want to and the way that they see fit. And I think that putting these books in front of other people's children is what's happening when you're putting them in a school library, publicly accessible to all those kids, is you are then subverting that parent's right to expose their children when they see fit to these ideas and these different things. So
I get that, but I'm wondering, I mean, do you feel like, what's the worst outcome that could happen if they, read some of this stuff? Like what damage would you think it would do long term?
Well, I've seen a little girl, I think out in Colorado, who said that a teacher offered her a title by a certain author, and she started reading this, and it ended up leading her down a path where she read more and more explicit books. She says that was the start of her landing in juvenile hall and then also interacting with pedophiles online. So
it started with a book?
It did. That's what she says. She started reading books that were recommended by her teacher.
Who is this kid? Do you remember?
Her story is on YouTube.
That seems a little far-fetched.
I think it's called Lost in the Pages. Well, this is one girl's story, so I'm just telling you, if you're asking for examples, this is a path that she was led down.
We are going to have to leave it there, but it's a fascinating conversation. We'll probably have to come back to it at a certain point. We're with Julie Gebhards, a member of the Florida-based group Moms for Liberty. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
Talking also with Casey Meehan, Freedom to Read Program Director. Casey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, next time on Florida Matters Live and Local, Hillsborough County is keeping school zone speed cameras on for the whole school day, not just drop off and pick up. Will it improve safety standards for students? That's Monday at 12 noon. That's our show for today. Florida Matters Live and Local executive producer is Grayson Doctor. Our producer is Amelie Horace. Our engineers are Jackson Harp and Geo Garvin. Jackson composes our music, and Natalie Jaron handled the video. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and watch on WUSF's YouTube channel. I'm Matthew Petty. Thanks so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you on Monday.
$100,000 fee for